Let's talk about Dune Part 2. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jared. This is my second video. So today the movie that we'll be reviewing is Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 2. Of course, the biggest movie of 2024. And rightfully so. And let's dive right in. So let's approach this way. Whatever I'm gonna say is not gonna sound particularly new because seriously, the movie has been out for over a month now and hundreds of thousands of people have reviewed it everywhere. So what I'm going to say is probably already mentioned by someone else, somewhere else on the planet. So here's the thing. So many people raved about this movie, and I'd just like to say this. Every aspect in Dune Part 2 is bigger than the first film, and yes, it is accurate, and I agree with that. So if the movie is across the board much better, or at least better than the first film, is it really because that Dune Part 2 is really better than Dune Part 1 in every single aspect, or it happens that every aspect in Dune Part 2 is handled with the same level of professionalism and executed to the same standard of excellence than the first film, and it happens that because every aspect in Dune Part 2 is bigger, it feels that the movie is also better overall than the first movie. Am I making sense? Food for thought. So the action and the drama are well balanced in Dune Part 2 with teaspoons of comedy well sprinkled throughout the film. And most of the film's comedy comes from Javier Bardem's character, but more on his performance later. So while the story of the second film is riveting, I do think, on second thought, because I watched the film twice, my second screening was over a month after my first. My first screening was actually on its day of release in Singapore. So after my second watch, I was finally able to objectively collect my thoughts, and I think that Dune Part 2 script is not as tight and finesse as the first film. So a quick note that Eric Roth adapted and wrote the screenplay for Dune Part 1, but not for Dune Part 2. So Dune Part 2 was co-written by Denis Villeneuve himself with John Spites. And with that being said, I am 100% curious if Eric Roth were to also write Dune Part 2 screenplay, would he have tightened up the script and have the pacing of the film much more balanced and easier to follow for audiences throughout. So one example I can think of, and this is a major spoiler, so if you haven't seen this movie as of this video, please, spoiler alert, okay? The character played by Austin Butler, Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen, conceived a daughter with the character played by Lea Sedol, Lady Margot Fenring, who is a Bene Gesserit. But near the end of the film, Butler's character, Feyd-Rautha, was killed by Paul Atreides in a fight, in a well-executed, well-shot, and much-awaited main fight scene of the movie. He was killed. So I'm thinking, the daughter of Feyd-Rautha and Lady Fenring, Bene Gesserit, of course it would be a story to develop, and in the last film, I presume, but how is it going to play out and affect the overall narrative so much so that would give enough significance in the third film as far as the character of Feyd-Rautha is concerned? This is my question, and I think that the answer I'm looking for is probably in the novel, but since I'm most likely not going to read it, I pray and I have confidence and I'm confident that Denis Villeneuve will handle it well in the last movie, Dune Messiah. Moving on to the acting of the movie, the performances are all leveled up across the board. So Timothée Chalamet, main character, he showed a new level of intensity never before seen, and so that's good. Zendaya's character Chani gets much more screen time and development in this movie, but I honestly think the character Chani, her real shining moment or moments is in the third film. And so it is for Princess Irulan, played by Florence Pugh. I think the two of them are going to have big, dramatic and character tension between the two of them in the third film, and I'm so looking forward to it. So let's move on to Javier Bardem's character Stilgar. Stilgar is probably my favorite character of this film. The transition and growth that he experienced from the first movie to the second movie, as we see, is quite remarkable, and most evidently by allowing Javier Bardem to show that kind of comic genius, for him to be this sort of comic relief in the second movie, is to me really impressive. So the range of emotions and images we have of the character Stilgar from the first film to the second is really broad and wide, and it really goes to show Javier Bardem's talent as an actor. But to me, the character who I think really stole the show and gave the best performance in Dune Part 2 was Rebecca Ferguson's Jessica. Her character development, to me, is one whole notch above Javier Bardem, but I really cannot spoil the movie anymore. Let's just say that both her and Timothée Chalamet's character, both her, Jessica, and Paul, gone through one same important critical turning point in Dune Part 2, and their characters and the fate of their characters and their characters themselves changed dramatically. And it's so mind-blowing, especially for Rebecca Ferguson's Jessica. I'm still thinking about it. One whole month after seeing Dune Part 2. So as mentioned, every aspect of Dune Part 2 is bigger and more grand and majestic than the first, naturally. The technical work all seems more outstanding. The cinematography in this film is breathtaking. The production design, sound, visual effects, film editing, etc., deserve praises. So as I move on to talk about these aspects, and you hear me talking in this tone, you know it's Oscars time. So whatever nominations Dune Part 1 got, repeat them for Dune Part 2. But at that directing nomination for Denis Villeneuve, if he gets snubbed again, trust me, the Academy will not survive the backlash. So can Dune Part 2 get nominated outside of those categories? Well, yes and no. You see, the remaining categories at the Oscars that are relevant and that Dune Part 2 would be eligible for are the 4 acting categories. And as we know it, a franchise like Dune isn't gonna do well in the acting categories. But Angela Bassett got nominated for Wakanda Forever, and that's a Marvel film. Yes. Yeah, I know. If, and that's a huge if, Dune Part 2 does get acting noms, it is possible. I'm not saying it's not. I do think that there are 2 ways it can go. So the first way is that those who truly deserve it will get it. And the second way is, of course, the more appeasing options that would both appeal to the people who think that their performances are indeed good, as well as appease social media and based on the popularity of the actors, these nominees would get nominated. So these are the 2 ways. So for the former, who I think deserve to be nominated, I already mentioned their names, Javier Bardem and Rebecca Ferguson. But who do I think the Academy is gonna pivot slightly more towards? Just a little bit. It's Austin Butler. So his character, Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen, has gotten the most mentions, I think at least, from what I observe, the most mentions for supporting characters in this movie across social media, and that really is just film Twitter. Let's face it. And in a very extremely far and long shot, Tim Chalamet for Best Actor, but I doubt. Hi everyone, well guess what? I forgot to say something again. Okay, let's see how many times I'm gonna forget, how many videos I'm gonna forget and keep recording this, okay? So 2 things. Just let me elaborate on the Oscar chances for Dune Part 2. I specifically thought about comparing it with Oppenheimer, but it's very different in the sense that the only major similarity between these 2 movies is that they are both the biggest movies of their respective years. But if I were to really think of something that can be repeated at next year's Oscars, and I think a lot of us cinephiles are trying to manifest this, is to have Christopher Nolan present the directing Oscar to Denis Villeneuve, and I think that would be awesome, but I'm not sure how probable that is. Apart from Best Director, I think Dune Part 2 does not have much of a chance in the rest of the top 8 categories. Another thing I want to talk about is my wall. Okay, as you can see, the color is not very nice. Let's just say that when my family moved in about 12, 13 years ago, the painting job wasn't that well done, yeah? So do pardon me. In the future, I will touch up my wall to put up some posters, film posters. I do have some film posters at home, but just give me some time to put them up. And last but not least, yes. So three things. The third thing is my rating for Dune Part 2 is 8.5 out of 10. And since I can't do that on Letterboxd, my rating on Letterboxd is 4.5 stars out of 5. And with that, we've come to the end of another film review. Yay! Okay, as usual, check out my blog version of Dune Part 2's review. I'll link it in the description below. Yep, follow my blog and can you follow it? Anyway, yeah, do check out my blog and subscribe to this channel. So let me just do a quick review of some of the films that I'll be watching and reviewing on this YouTube channel. So in the next 2 weeks, I'll be catching Alex Garland's Civil War, as well as Dev Patel's Monkey Man, both huge movies that have just recently starting to pick up steam and praises across the board. Near the end of April through to the start of May, we also have The Fall Guy, starring Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, as well as Luca Guadagnino's Challengers, starring Zendaya again, and Mike Fice and Josh O'Connor. So exciting films. And I'll also be attending the Singapore Chinese Film Festival, and I may review a film or two or more than that on these channels, and I'll do them in Chinese, in Mandarin, and I'll subtitle them. So do be sure to stay tuned and subscribe, and remember to check them out if you're interested. Okay, so we've come to the end of this video. So be sure to follow my socials, Twitter, Letterboxd, my blog, like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.